Matt, I believe you're on mute.
Welcome in, everyone, to the Uncle Phil Lock-In Live Week 2 College Football Edition with Smooth Andy, Apollo. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this morning. And we're trying out a new format, so bear with us. But we're looking forward to another great day of college football and some more winners. Great start last week, Uncle Phil. Really, really good start. 2-0 on your public plays. 4-0 on your best bets and 7-2 in the notebook, and Smooth Andy with a respectable 2-1. But thanks everyone for joining, and looking forward to another great show.
Yeah, look, I am. Week 1's always a little bit different story. Had some good matchups this year on week 1, took advantage of those. Feel good about it. Smooth Andy, what do you think about going into week 2?
Still a little frustrated by this. Happens every year to me, being that a lot of what I try to do has to do with what happened last week and what's happening next week and how people are perceiving teams. And we only have 1 week of data, and most of it was Cupcake City last week. So it's hard to say that you learned a lot about Tennessee annihilating whoever the heck they annihilated last week or whoever. So I'm still kind of dragging my feet a little bit into the season because a lot of the data I really need to make the decisions I want to make isn't in here yet. And this week, a lot of cupcakes again. We were talking about that earlier this week about how kind of frustrating that is.
Yep.
So, but there are a couple of good games and there's some mediocre games in there as well. And I've got a few picks. I think I'll have about 7 total, but 3 for today for this show.
Yeah. College football always gives you some really good weeks, and it gives you a week here and there that's just not that great. And I feel like that today is one of those weeks that is just not that great. There were a few picks I really liked, and then the rest of the board I really didn't. So kind of scraped everything down. I've got 2 best bets for people out today. I've got 2 bonus picks, doubled up again on the bonus picks, and then I've got 9 total picks in the notebook today. So we're in good shape. Matt, how are you feeling today?
Feeling good. Looking forward to the Nebraska game tonight. Should be a great one. And then also looking forward to Michigan, Texas. I mean, that should be a hell of a game.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So with that being said, let's get to it. Where are we heading first, Uncle Phil?
Yeah. For me, I'm playing 2 totals as 2 of my best bets here today. First one I'm going to Stillwater, and I'm going where Arkansas is taking on Oklahoma State this week. Really interesting matchup. I'm a Hog fan and have been all my life, but and didn't have much optimism going the season. Saw a lot that I liked last week. The line kind of oddly moved down to 7.5 and jumped up yesterday to 9.5, like somebody knew something. It was kind of weird. I think it even hit 10 in some spots. But for me, I really like the total. I like the total. The 61.5. I feel like that Arkansas has some work to do on the secondary. I feel like they can get beat over the top. And I also feel like Arkansas's offense, I mean, you kind of saw it last week with Texas A&M, right? You saw Texas A&M, their offense just completely regressed and was just horrendous. The best quarterbacks looks like they transferred out, and they're stuck with Connor Wegman. But Arkansas played 3 quarterbacks last week against UAPB, and all 3 quarterbacks looked great. And that's the key. That's what Bobby Petrino gives you. He's unbelievable offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and just fantastic. So Arkansas's offense is much improved. I feel like the total still doesn't reflect that, even though it's come down a point. I think it started off at 62.5. But so I like the over 61.5 as my first best bet today. And then after that, I'm going to go to the night game. Is Lincoln, Nebraska, where Colorado's taken on Nebraska. Again, I try to pick more of the primetime games so everybody can watch these games and enjoy them and root along. I don't really shy away from the big games, and this one's no exception. I think that Colorado has the 2 best players in the game, but I think overall Nebraska has the better team. But what I like about both coaches is I think they're going to score a lot of points. So I'm going to go over 55.5 as my second best bet this morning. So those are my 2 best bets this morning, and that's who I'm rolling with, Matt.
Let's keep it rolling after such a great start last week. With that being said, we'll go to Smooth Andy for his best bets. And in the meantime, we're not bringing any people up to speak given this new format. But if you want to ask questions, join the StreamYard, and in the comment section, you can ask a question to Smooth Andy and Uncle Phil. We already have some of them there. So if you want to get some feedback on any individual game, or you want to hear more about their thoughts on the games they're playing, jump on StreamYard and hit the comment section. Smooth Andy.
Thanks, Matt. My Twitter handle, by the way, is @SmoothAndy5, the number 5, not the word. For those of you who might want to follow, I will have 4 more picks up later. But for my 3 picks for the show, I'm going to go back to the well with Clemson, even though I got whipped last week. I think that there's been a lot of talk since losing to Georgia last week that suggests that that this is just another mediocre team, and to some degree that's true. I'm 8-4 seems about right for this team. But after that loss, they're going to be pissed. They're going to be going home, and everybody's on App State in that game. I think it's 70% of the bets are around App State. So I think people are just overreacting a bit, and it looks like a big number to cover, and App State's been known to be a good team. I'm just going with them coming out angry, and I think the public perception of them being just swinging a little bit too much this past week. I've also got South Carolina as a road dog against Kentucky, +9, and that one hit a few metrics for me, so I'm going to be flying with that. And finally, South Florida, they play Alabama today. South Florida 2 years ago, when Jeff Scott, the former Clemson assistant coach, was still their head coach, was awful. I think they won like 2 games or something. Last year, I think they went bowling. I think they won 6. Which means, to me, that means their coach has got them moving the right direction. This point spread is about the same as it was last week when Alabama played Cupcake City and demolished them. So I think Alabama made their statement with their new coach by scoring a ton of points last week. They have Wisconsin next week. Maybe not a look-ahead game. Maybe it's out of conference, but that's going to be a game where you're going to have to get dirty. So this week, I think they might be coming in almost like in a sandwich game mentality. Let's just get this over with and then get on with our lives. So give me South Florida +31.
Yeah, look, man, I really like where you're going with that because that's kind of what you get week 2. Week 2, week 1, people are fired up. They've been practicing against each other, scrimmaging against each other, in fall, and they're ready to summer and fall, and they're ready to just smash somebody, and that's kind of what they do. When teams don't smash someone, you are kind of concerned. You're like, how are you not ready for game 1? In game 2, you almost do expect a letdown. I like where you're going. I really like your picks this week. And certainly wish you the best. Matt, we got some questions on StreamYard. Looks like first one's thoughts on Kentucky and South Carolina. Smooth Andy, you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, I've got South Carolina +9 in that game. It popped up on a few of my metrics, one of which is road dogs, unpopular road dogs. I think the world is on Kentucky, possibly appropriately so. But this is an SEC game. These teams play each other more or less every year. And I just like an unpopular road dog like this. So it really just hit that. And I think there's some reverse line movement, if I recall correctly, as well. No, I'm sorry, there isn't. But it just hits some things for me. Also a low total, 42.5 is the total. It's good to have a dog with the low total. So that was it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, certainly if you have less points, give the dog a lot more opportunities to stay within that number. For me, that line went down. I was surprised. The one thing I know is that when you have the number between 7.5 and 10, it's about right at a third of those where the dog covers. It's kind of an odd number. When you see that 7.5 to 10 points, you have a really good shot at an underdog covering. So that was good. It made me kind of stay away from that initially early in the week. I loved Kentucky. I just think South Carolina is terrible. I really do. I think they just look bad. Look potentially like the worst team in the SEC. So really concerned about that one. But Kentucky's at home. I need to see more of them. I just didn't have enough TVs to watch everybody last week, and I didn't see Kentucky play, so I just couldn't pull the trigger, and I talked myself out of it just because I would be pulling the trigger just because I'd be betting against South Carolina without seeing Kentucky State. That's just not what we do. We try not to gamble. We try to invest and try to make smart choices and make rational choices and reasoned choices, and we understand that you guys, whether it's $5 or $5,000, everybody wants to win, and we want to try to put the odds in your favor, and we try to be thoughtful about what we do. The next one. So, how do you feel about Ohio State over 54.5? I think it's potential. Ohio State was kind of the one that bugged me last week. I mean, I really expected Ohio State to come out like gangbusters, and they got the best team money could buy. I mean, it was very obvious that they went and snatched everybody in the portal last year in the offseason. And, they came out really kind of lackluster, and that game was close, and they kind of blew them out at the end. But, I didn't like Ohio State. I need to see them again, see if they can get it back. I'm not a coach for Ohio State, I'm not a big fan of his.
Ryan Day.
Yeah. I'm not a Ryan Day guy, and I don't think that there's part of me that just thinks that he's close, but may just not be the guy for Ohio State. That he may be good, but he just may not be the alpha that Ohio State needs. We'll see.
Like the John Cooper era, right? At Ohio State, they were always right there, but they just couldn't do it. Yeah.
I mean, this is his year, right? I mean, this is kind of like, hey, I think that. I mean, it's kind of championship or bust for Ohio State, and I think that's it. Let's see. Tennessee versus NC State. Somebody's referencing national champs in baseball. Man, you got Vitello in baseball. I digress, but I mean, he's fantastic. He's the best coach in college baseball. Amazing. I wish Arkansas had him, but congratulations for you that you guys do. Versus Tennessee. I know that you're playing NC State on this one, aren't you, Smooth?
Yep, I am.
Did you reverse line moving on that, or what did you just play?
Let me refresh my memory. First of all, I've got first of all, the world is the world is on Tennessee. I mean, that's
Yeah.
plain as day. This line is, I mean, they've just been getting pummeled all week. I just like this as same thing with the Kentucky South Carolina game. I just felt like when I saw the line, I was like, kind of surprised it's not double digits.
Yeah.
And sometimes when
Yeah.
you see that, and this is probably not true because I don't think books really think this way, but when you start thinking of them as almost being a human being and you're trying to psychoanalyze why they're doing what they're doing, you feel like they're drawing bets for Kentucky and for Tennessee in these games because everybody's like, I mean, I only have to give 9 against South Carolina. I mean, I only have to give 9 against NC State. I just felt like those are two kind of ones where they're trying to get people to just go, hey, don't overthink it, and take the
Isn't it funny? Like when you see these lines, you start psychoanalyzing things. You start turning to an FBI profiler, and you're like, "How are they screwing me?
Yeah.
How are you screwing me today?"
Yeah.
And you're just like, "What's Vegas doing to me today?" Look, man, that game's a notebook for me. I'll leave Smooth Andy with the last word in that one. Let's see. Michigan, Texas. That one's in my notebook. It's actually my bonus pick. It's one of my strongest picks this week. I absolutely love that game. Smooth Andy, I'll let you opine on that one.
Okay. Don Best has this as 61% of the bets on Texas, opened 5 up to 6.5, so it moved in the right direction. I think most people, my view is the same as the public, it would seem. Just on the first glance at this thing, you think, okay, well, Texas more or less has just about I mean, they lost some wide receivers, don't get me wrong, Xavier Worthy and was Adonis Mitchell or some getting his first name wrong, but so it's not like they didn't lose anybody, but they still have viewers. They still have their quarterback. Meanwhile, Michigan got a new coach who was on staff last year, one of their assistants, and they got a new quarterback because their quarterback went to the pros and is now in Minnesota. So I think there's a lot more unknowns about Michigan, but that makes me a little wary here. I'm a little nervous. I don't know if I like the idea of Texas going on the road minus 6.5 against a team that just won the national championship, regardless of the coaching change. I'm laying off this one, but this is definitely the best game of the day on paper, and I'm going to be watching it no matter what. So
yeah, no, it should be a good one. I mean, look, it's I think this will tell us really who both teams are. I mean, Texas, I think is I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be one of the favorites to win it all this year. Michigan, did they lose too much in the draft? Will Coach Moore, will he be, how do you follow a legend? Is he able to keep this team intact and keep the train rolling? We'll know today. We'll know today if that is the case. If Michigan vaults up, I mean, really got a chance. I mean, this is, 2 top 10 teams, and it'll be fun to watch. Should be just be a heck of a game. And the good news is we won't have to wait long. It's a noon Eastern game, so right off the jump. I don't think I see a whole lot more, Matt. I think we're probably kind of near the finish on things.
Okay. Well, one guy just jumped in, and you haven't mentioned this game, but Iowa State. I feel like every year we talk about at least the total on that game. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I have a board. The way I work is I have a board of I start with a board of about, somewhere between 15 and 20 games. And then I whittle that board down to somewhere between 6 and 9 games. And Iowa State was on that board. I think that the total's really interesting to me. I took it off because I lean towards the over in that game because, Iowa scored 3 receiving touchdowns last week. That's the same number that they had the entire year last year. So I think that you take advantage of these games. Your strategy in games week 1 and week 2 are to take advantage of what people saw last year, the recency bias. It's like that's what people do is they pop open a cold one and they go, okay, Iowa's offense. They start looking at lines this week. They go, Iowa's offense always sucks, and typically it does, but I think it could be a little bit different this year. I think you have an opportunity, but I need to see one more game to really believe that. Obviously, I'm losing some value by not totally buying in and seeing the offense, but I didn't get to see them play enough last week to fully buy into that narrative. And so when I have questions about things, I whittle it down and cut out. And that's kind of what I did last night when I didn't have enough questions or had enough answers about the Green Bay Philadelphia game. And so I had some leans and so, but I learned some stuff, and it was good despite being kind of, again, another, South American field that just wasn't really up to par, or it's soccer fields, and they just play a little bit different than the American football fields. And thanks for bringing that one up, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt like the last couple of years we've been doing this. That's always been a question that's popped up, is that game specifically and the total. So glad you could give some feedback there.
Yep, no doubt. I see Georgia Tech Syracuse questions. I don't really have an opinion on that one. I love Haynes King, and I love Haynes, the running back for Georgia Tech. I just haven't seen Syracuse. Syracuse is a very popular play this week, though. And if I played it, I'd just be following the crowd, and I don't do that. I don't play the crowd. I give you my picks and my picks only, and I stick with that. And typically, that's why I think I do well. It's 1% of the handicappers out there in the entire world that actually make money, and I've been part of that 1%, and no need to follow the 99%. Smooth Andy, you've always been successful. I kind of feel like that this is a game you might have a feel on.
Well, you thought wrong.
I set you up for that.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should have. Well, these things are going to happen. I haven't seen Syracuse play yet. They did play last week. I can't remember who. The perception in the ACC is that Syracuse is getting better. That they've done, I think, some things in the transfer portal, new coach, etc. Georgia Tech, I think, kind of had their coming out party, a couple weeks ago against Florida State, and I think that's lingering in people's minds. I'm not sure why you can justify Georgia Tech being a 3-point favorite on the road at Syracuse unless somebody thinks it's right. And like you said, most people are betting on Syracuse. The line hasn't moved anyway, so maybe there's not a lot of money on this game to begin with. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I can't really give an opinion. I've seen Georgia Tech play one game, and it was a big upset, and I know that's haze over my perceptions of this, and I haven't seen Syracuse. I'll be interested in this game too. I'll probably be flipping back to this one while I'm watching the Michigan game today at noon.
Hey, speaking of the Michigan game, we got somebody just asked a question specifically to you. They said, Andy, they didn't address you by your smooth title, but yeah. Just Andy. So what do you? There you go. Hey, so what do you think of the total of the Texas? It's low, right? What do you think?
Texas, Michigan?
Yeah.
It is low, yes. I think at this time of year, it's the same with the NFL. I think over-unders are going to be a little bit shaved down. I think the perception is that most of the offenses are going to be behind the defenses, especially with two good teams. So I think it makes sense. Typically, in the past, when I've been measuring these things, I used to have a spreadsheet where I'd write down every line, every over or under, everything, and then the outcomes and how the line moved and blah, blah, blah. And I just did all these metrics. I always found that really low totals like this, like a 41.5 is what I'm seeing on this game, typically go under. Not always, but I think it was a statistically significant enough number, like maybe 60-40, something like that, go under. So in that sense, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you're looking to the under, I might agree with you, but I don't really know exactly what to expect from these two teams yet, not having seen either one play this year. So
yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Again, just strategy. Again, we try not to just give you games. We try to give you strategy, and I think strategy is important. Is that it typically the extremes on the totals is that if you have a low total, it tends to go under, and if you have a really high total, if you can almost pick the highest total on the board, it will typically go over. Especially, but that's more starting about the third game. The second game, first and second game, you're kind of a little wary on that, but certainly know that that's a high percentage on that. Well, guys, look, man, it's about 30 minutes after. Although there's one other question. I've seen it come up past time. Didn't mean to ignore it. The Kansas-Illinois game. That one's in the notebook. Feel pretty good about that one. Smooth Andy, do you have any thoughts on the Kansas-Illinois game before I build you up and hang you out on a line and for you to go nope?
Well, it's not going to be one of my picks, so it didn't make it for me. I know it popped up a couple times for some things. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Yeah, I'm not seeing much with that one. That one just didn't make my radar this week, so I'm sorry about that. I am interested to see how Kansas is now because I think they lost their offensive coordinator to Penn State.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see as somebody a big program is finally starting to pick apart the assistant coaches at the Kansas Jayhawks football program, which hasn't happened in decades. So good for them for being good enough to get picked apart by Penn State like that. But I'll be interested to see if they're able to just reload or if they're going to end up with a Nick Sirianni situation with their new coordinator.
Yeah, no, but one last one I saw, Maryland or Michigan State. I don't have an opinion on that one. I have not watched either team really. I mean, I saw a little bit of highlights of Maryland. I mean, they did well last week, but it's about all I got. Do you have anything on that game?
I do have that one actually, Uncle Phil. I'm going to be on Michigan State. They're getting no bets. Everybody's on Maryland. I think everybody saw what Maryland did last week, and everybody remembers Michigan State only as the team that had to fire their coach for sexual harassment last year. I don't even know who their head coach is now, but I just think there's talent up there, and once they get rid of the distraction of that former coach and start rebuilding, I think this is probably going to be a better team than people think, and I think that Maryland right now is probably not as good as people think. So give me Michigan State in this one.
100%. Matt, I think we're done, man.
Absolutely. Any parting thoughts before we take off? Enjoy college football Saturday.
Yeah, I know. For Andy, I'll let you start us off. Any parting thoughts for this Saturday?
Just looking forward to watching some football. And again, I'm sort of wading in slowly on these bets. Last week I had 3. This week I'm going to have 7. Hoping next week to be in double digits. I like to play a lot of games and have a lot of fun, but we just don't have a lot of data yet. So I'm going to be trying to pay attention and see these games and get some perceptions about some of these teams, particularly the ones who go out and whip somebody's butt today. And then, next week everybody's going to want to bet on them. So look for things like that. That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
Unless it's a cupcake, in which case, forget it. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
But agreed. I think this is a week for me. I think that you probably go a little lighter than normal, just because I think it's kind of a lull before we get to some of the conference games, and teams are going to kind of take back or kind of pull back a little bit. So I just there's part of me that just says go a little bit. The advice would just go a little bit lighter. People are kind of happy after week 1 and get blown out in week 2. So let's ease into this so that we can preserve our bankroll for next week. But guys, hey, thanks for tuning in. For Matt, who hosts and produces the show, for Smooth Andy. Some people thought you wore glasses. You don't. Well, you do sometimes. There you go. Anyway, guys, hey, I'm Uncle Phil. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. Had a great show, and let's have a day. All right, guys, as always, let's roll. The streets I used to